All right, let people join. We've got some folks trickling in. We'll give it another few seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And as folks join, hopefully they can catch up. We will send out the recording to everybody who signed up after we've concluded. So hopefully nobody misses anything. Welcome everybody to our latest product webinar. If I haven't had the privilege of meeting you, I'm Alison Teegarden. I'm one of the co-founders of TeamSense and also the head of product. And I'm really excited to get to share with you today what kind of the latest is in TeamSense over the last couple of months and what our vision is going forward as we look to kind of what's coming down the pipe for the product. Feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go. If we don't get to them immediately, we'll make sure to circle back at the end, and Shannon's on the line to help make sure that we don't miss any questions. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. Maybe just to start off and kind of set the stage a little bit as we dive into what's new in TeamSense. For those of you who may be less familiar with TeamSense, let me give you a quick summary of what TeamSense does. So TeamSense automates the call-off process for manufacturing, logistics, warehouse organizations, so that we remove all of the headaches that typically dominate in this process, headaches for employees, for supervisors, for HR, and we do it in a way that actually reduces absenteeism. And you're probably thinking that's crazy. I don't know of a call-off system that reduces absenteeism. And that's really what we're going to get into today around some of the features that we've been releasing. So looking at the specifics of the features that are new in TeamSense over the last couple months, it's really been around providing attendance data in a more transparent way to employees, to their managers, and to HR. So the big things that are new in TeamSense are the ability for employees to now see their own detailed attendance history, which we'll get into a second, and also for admins and team leaders in a single glance to be able to see an employee's attendance standing. And our goal with all of this is really to provide transparency in the attendance process. Those of you who joined our last webinar on product in September may recall that we talked a lot about the value of transparency then. And this is a big part of our vision at TeamSense for transforming attendance for all of these organizations and the people within them. Transparency, when you think about the attendance process today, one of the things that often comes up when we're talking to customers is the frustration around trying to understand an employee's standing when it comes to attendance. You have the employee calling off, you've got the supervisor trying to track down where that information is and what it means. You've got HR trying to figure out how to make sure that information is captured accurately and in a way that flows to payroll appropriately. And all of these individuals are often really frustrated that they feel they only have one slice, one angle of all of the information. And so our goal at TeamSense is to make sure that everybody is looking at the same data and that data is enabling every person to make the right decisions for themselves and their organization when it comes to attendance. And so when it comes to this transparency for employees, one of the things that's really important to us is that employees have the ability to see their own attendance standing. And a lot of times, what we hear from employees in these organizations is that their attendance data is like locked away somewhere in ADP or UKG, and it's really difficult for them to access. Oftentimes they don't know if they have access to it, or they have to go through HR or through their supervisor, and that's super frustrating for everybody involved. HR and their supervisor often have other things to do. It's really challenging to manage these requests, and the employees would rather just have access themselves. And so with this latest feature of attendance history for employees, what we've really done is given them access to all of that information. So over the last several months, we've essentially added a new screen into the employee experience for TeamSense. Those of you who are current customers and are familiar with the way TeamSense works know that if you're an employee, the way you call off is you actually just text into your company's TeamSense phone number, and you will get back a link. Because of the way our system works, we automatically recognize who you are when you text us. And so we can say in that link, "Hi, Anita, to complete calling off, submit this absence form." And when they open that link, what they now see is this page. And this page gives them their attendance standing with full transparency. It shows them their points balance. It shows them their summary of all of their absences over the last 12 months. And then what we've most recently added into the product is this ability to see that attendance history with more detail. And specifically, the ability to see their precise absence form responses for all of their absences over the last 12 months. And the reason that we wanted to make sure we added this is because a lot of times the way that something gets coded into payroll is dependent on precise answers to a question. If you chose that, it was sick leave versus family emergency, that can flow to payroll in different ways. And there's the potential for employees to dispute the way things get coded. And what we wanted to be able to do was make sure that supervisors, HR, and employees are all able to look at that same information so that when they have a conversation about attendance, they're all coming at it with the same data, and there's an understanding between them of exactly what the employee chose to report and how that cascaded into potential consequences. And so if we go ahead, I'm actually going to share my screen and show you, what this looks like. So here, if Anita Turner texted into TeamSense to call off this morning and opened that link, this is what she'd see. She'd see she has 4.5 attendance points, and she's overall had 7 absences in the last 12 months. If she wanted to go ahead and report her absence, she could go ahead and do so. She could also choose to view that attendance history. And so here she'll see all of those absences that she's had over the last 12 months in TeamSense and be able to see the precise survey responses for each one, along with the date and time stamp that those absences were submitted. And so again, eliminating the need for any misunderstandings, any disputes. Employees are able to see exactly what they said and the date and time that they reported their absence. And then, like I said, if they want to continue to go ahead and report their absence, they can go ahead and do so. And that's the TeamSense that you all, anybody who's a current customer should be familiar with and you all know and love. So really simple, but again, putting the data into the hands of the employees themselves so that they can make decisions. And when we talked earlier about the ability to reduce absenteeism, this is really where that starts. It's being able, as an employee, to understand the impact of my decision to call off and then be able to make the best decision for myself. And a lot of times, when organizations are coming into TeamSense, this is the very first time employees have had access to this kind of information. And so with that, employees are able to make decisions about whether or not it's appropriate for them to call off or not. So that's the employee view. And like I said earlier, it's really important to us that employees, supervisors, and HR all be looking at the same information. And so for HR and team leaders, which is what we call supervisors in TeamSense, we've brought that information into the application so that they can see the same view. And we want them to be able to understand all in one view at a glance what an employee's standing is when it comes to attendance. So again, we're starting off with that attendance points summary up at the top, and the summary of all of their absences over the last 12 months. One customer I was speaking with pointed out that this makes it very easy to see a particular pattern of absences. I'll go ahead and show you in the product itself why that's the case, but being able to see, okay, this individual has 5 unscheduled absences right off the bat in the last 12 months. But being able to even see, there was one employee that we had looked at where you had a series of late arrivals. And so it's very easy to see if there's a certain pattern that you're starting to observe in the employee's behavior, and have the data to be able to go and talk to the employee about it. And now, with the employee history, the employee has that data too. So again, if you're HR or if you're a supervisor, you have the ability to see really easily all of the responses to the surveys. You'll also see the sync status and any notes that have been added, which are hidden from employees. Employees don't see those. And so in one view, the ability to really get a sense of what the employee's standing is, what kind of patterns you're seeing in their behavior, and make decisions about how you want to talk to employees about their attendance. This kind of transparency, being able to see the same information, being able to see the comprehensive information for an employee's attendance standing, this is really what forms the foundation for reducing absenteeism with TeamSense. So I want to come back to what I mentioned at the beginning, which was that TeamSense is a product that automates the call-off process, and many organizations come to us and are relieved to find a solution that makes sure that supervisors are notified immediately, that documentation is captured accurately and in a structured, standardized way. They're relieved to find something employees actually want to use and have a good experience with, that works in every language that their employees use, and that's really easy for them to turn around and create analytics and insights out of. But the truly unique thing with TeamSense is that with some of this transparency we've created, we actually have the opportunity to change behavior. And what we've been seeing is by providing this level of information to the employee, to the supervisor, to HR, that we're able to create the foundation to have a conversation about attendance in a way that we couldn't before. So this transparency is basically showing employees, you have 4.5 points. Do you still want to call off? Are you sure that you want to call off today? And it's providing the transparency for HR and supervisors to also understand, okay, this employee has 4.5 points. I also see an interesting pattern here of behavior. What does this mean for the conversation I need to have with this employee? Do I need to understand a particular scenario? We had one customer who, through the ability to observe patterns about an employee, was talking about understanding like, oh, this employee actually has a required medical treatment that is happening every Thursday. And we weren't aware of that. And they didn't need to call off and accrue points for that. Instead, we can have a conversation with that employee and figure out how we can enable them to do that in a way that doesn't affect their attendance standing. Those kinds of conversations were really difficult before. And now TeamSense has enabled those conversations to happen. And so it's really about using the data to create the space to have an understanding between the employee and the organization, and to do so in a way that helps the employee and the organization be more effective and productive. And so as we kind of look to the future of the product and where the product is going, this vision of transparency is really about enabling those conversations and ultimately using that transparency to create a culture of accountability when it comes to attendance, and do so in a way that actually reduces absenteeism. what we've seen in organizations that have been able to bring this level of visibility to employees and the rest of the company is that there have been reductions in absenteeism of almost 40% by bringing a new level of visibility into an employee's attendance standing. And so we're continuing to work with organizations to partner with them on how to help their organization achieve those kinds of results. And it really starts with this transparency. And so what you're going to see as we look to kind of the next phase of the product is continuing to bring that level of transparency even further. And what we're working on next is really being able to highlight the particular attendance policy of an organization. And so, it's really helpful for an employee to be able to see that they have 4.5 points. But what does that mean within the context of their organization's attendance policy? Every attendance policy is unique. And so at some organizations, 4.5 points is a very concerning number of points, and at other organizations, not so much. And so, the next piece of the product, we're working on bringing that visibility to employees, understanding exactly what that points balance means, and then being able to provide tools for the organization and the employee to communicate about that points balance. So we're super excited about it. We're working with multiple customers as we design this out. Those of you who have worked with us for a while know that the way that we create the product is in partnership with customers. And so if any of you have ideas or suggestions to help provide this level of transparency to employees and their organizations, please feel free to contact us. You're always welcome to contact the product team at ideas@teamsense.com. We would love to hear from you. So with that, that really summarizes what is new in the product, this attendance history that has rich detail and understanding for employees, for supervisors, for HR is what we've been working on. And we're so excited that it's in your hands and can't wait to hear your feedback. So with that, I will turn it over to you all and see if there are any questions on anything that I've shared or anything that TeamSense is working on.
Excellent. Thanks, Allison. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. We do have a few questions that have come in, and if you have questions, please continue to submit them. We will try to get to each and every one of them. A couple of questions. We'll start at the top. How does the attendance history functionality work with the attendance points feature?
Got it. Yes. So basically, let me go ahead and go back to that screen. So the attendance points feature is provided through a points integration. So when you as an organization join TeamSense, we have a variety of different integrations that we can set up for your organization. We can grab employee data from your HRAS. We can sync attendance data, so the specifics of the absences with your time and attendance system. And then we can also grab attendance points data, whether that's stored in your time and attendance system or for some organizations, it's just stored in a spreadsheet. No worries, we can grab all of that. And so we're actually setting up an integration to grab that data on a regular basis. And when we provide that data to employees, it's based on the latest that you have provided TeamSense. It's a very simple integration to set up. For those of you who store your attendance points in a spreadsheet, it's very simple, and for those of you who store it in time and attendance, we can often just set it up so that we're pulling it in with any other employee data or absence data that you might have. So altogether, it's quite simple. And if you're an existing customer and haven't looked into adding that into the system, reach out to your customer success manager. If you're not sure who your customer success manager is, you can always reach them at success@teamsense.com.
Okay, fantastic. And a follow-on kind of question that goes along with that. We don't use a point system, but we want to show employees other balances like personal time and sick time. How does that work?
Totally. Awesome. Yeah, so this is actually something that we're exploring right now. So right now, TeamSense supports points balances specifically, but we're in the process of exploring adding other balances into TeamSense. So, it would be most helpful if I'm an employee and I really want to understand my comprehensive attendance standing. I want to see not just my points balance. I want to see how much vacation time I have left and how much sick time I have left. And so we are working on adding that into TeamSense and doing it in the same way that we do points balances and other information, again, via an integration. And so if you're a customer that's interested in exploring that with us, we would love to chat with you. And again, feel free to reach out to the product team at ideas at teamsense.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, for employees who do not call out, how are points typically calculated?
Great question. So the points balance calculation is actually happening within your system. So TeamSense is not doing the calculation ourselves. What we're doing is simply grabbing the points balance from wherever your source of truth is when it comes to points. So if you have a no call, no show, and that's automatically identified in ADP or whatever your clock-in system is, and the points balance is automatically updated, that then is just flowing into TeamSense. And so assuming your punch-in system is capturing that automatically, it should be captured automatically. If not, it would follow the same process that you follow today to update points balances after there's a no call, no show.
What does an employee see in their attendance history if an admin or a supervisor manually adds an absence?
Yeah, great question. So those of you who were paying close attention might have noticed that there's a button right here to add an absence. And so um, for something like a no call, no show, for example, you could go ahead and add that manually into TeamSense. And it shows up just like any of the other absences do within TeamSense for the employee. So they would see it just like any of these other absences. The only difference is that there wouldn't be any precise survey responses because they didn't fill out a survey, but they would see that it was created at a certain date and time.
We're working to implement TeamSense. How do we work with you to pull our attendance history that we already have in our time and attendance system into TeamSense?
Absolutely. That is a great question. So, some of you might be thinking, it's great that you can show attendance history for the last rolling 12 months. But what if I'm just starting to use TeamSense today? That means that this isn't really going to provide a lot of value for a while until TeamSense, our employees have been using TeamSense for a while. And so what we can do is when you're setting up TeamSense for the first time, we can actually work with you to pull in your historical absence data from your time and attendance system so that the very first time an employee uses TeamSense to call off, they're already seeing a view populated with the last rolling 12 months of absences. And so that enables them to get value out of this transparency from the very first use.
Okay, I think I have one more for you that's come through. I work in HR and we get a lot of calls from employees about how many points they have or how many absences they have for the year. What's the best way to communicate to them that they don't need to call us anymore and instead they look for their information through TeamSense?
Totally. We hear this one a lot. um, just a shout out. Thank you to everybody who's in HR and all that you do for your employees and your teams and your organizations. You all are incredible. Um, so yes, typically HR is often fielding a lot of questions from employees. What's my vacation balance? What's my points balance? On top of everything else that they do. And so obviously with this ability for employees to access that themselves, we'd like to enable them to serve themselves. And so because this is actually in the pre-call off screen, a lot of employees will figure it out on their own, that they can access this on their own. However, once you implement, a points balance integration or want to direct them to use TeamSense to access that information, you could also message that out using the TeamSense communicate function. So TeamSense can send, you can send out a communicate message to all employees and say, hey, a reminder that you can actually access your points balance using TeamSense now. And you will see it either in the screen before call off if you try to call off, or you can actually, for those of you who don't know, if you have a points balance integration, you can actually text in the word points and you'll be able to see your points balance there. And so using a communicate message we found is really helpful to just continue to remind employees of functionality available to them. And over time, after a couple times of using it, they often pick it up quickly and we see HR requests decline.
All right, excellent. Well, Allison, that's all the questions that have come through live, but I just want to take a moment to remind anyone that if you do have additional questions, we are happy to answer those. You can actually send an email to webinars@teamsense.com for anything, for a demo, a technical question, product feedback, anything you have, and we will make sure that it gets to the right team. So that's webinars@teamsense.com. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Shannon. And thank you everyone for joining. Have a fantastic rest of your week and happy holidays until our next product webinar.